Hello, everybody. Uncle Al is the only one that I see so far. Hello, Uncle Al. I thought you had links on Fallout. You mentioned in that video. So if I can get those links, I don't want movies. If it's a documentary, that's fine. But everything I'm finding is there was no fallout. It was only a radiation from the original alpha, beta, gamma rays from the blast. But so what you said in that critique in your video, if you can give me those links, I really want to learn. So would appreciate it. I guess we'll wait for a couple of minutes and see if anybody else comes on. Hi, Banks Homestead. Welcome. We're going to see if anybody else comes on. We're down up to 2 people now. So usually we'll have Bouger Prepper, Apartment Prepper, Linda's Prepping Kitchen, Tracy Muckenfuss. Hello, how are you? Welcome. And get my moderators on here. Van City Prepper and all those people. Well, let me start off before we actually get into the book. Hey, there she is. Yay. Hi, Prepping by Faith. Hi, Rita. Welcome. So what I want to do is I want to kind of start off before we get into the heaviness of this subject, chapter 5, which is first aid and hygiene. I want to kind of give you a couple great sources. You like my new lack of hair? Is that what it is? But anyhow, I wanted to give you a couple resources that you can use, especially in these subjects. So you can go online, and if you have something to write it down, I'll put it in the show notes before later on. I'll edit this, but that won't happen until Thursday or Friday. There's an Army Field Manual, FM 4-25. You can get that in PDF form, and that's first aid, battlefield first aid. There's also FM 21-10, and that, to me, that's the Bible. And Field Manual 21-10 is field hygiene and sanitation. So it tells you the ways that we in the Army take care of field sanitation and hygiene when we're out in the field. Of course, the gallows is my favorite. And so what they did was they built this gallows, this large scaffold with porta potty seats on top of it and holes in the scaffolding. And then you had a 55-gallon drum underneath. I always thought that was just making it a target for the Viet Cong, but that's just the way it was, I guess, the way it was back in this early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. But anyhow, some other books I want to recommend is the American College of Emergency Physicians has this first aid manual. In my opinion, it is the best emergency first aid manual out there. I strongly recommend that for your library. Then Dr. Joe Alton and his wife, Amy, and they're known as Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. They put this out several years ago. It's a survival medicine handbook, and it's really good. So it's got a lot of good first aid information on there too. They also have some homeopathic solutions should things get bad. The other one I'm going to recommend, especially right now, and they've got a new one out. I should have brought it out too, but Alton's Antibiotics and Infectious Disease. That's going to be a major part of Selco's discussion tonight. So understanding what antibiotics are good for what is going to be important. So I want to kind of preface this evening with an introduction of those books and say, please add those to your library. The other thing is next week is going to be our last week of this book. Now, I'm proposing that we probably take a week break after we finish chapter 6 of the current book, which is SHTF Survival Book Camp. And then what I'd like to do is, I'm the one who picked this one. So I would like to have you all recommend to me and send me your recommendations for the next nonfiction book, if you want to do it, on what we need to discuss. So please send me your recommendations. We'll announce which one at our last meeting, which will be next Tuesday. We'll take a 1-week break and give everybody a chance to catch up on life and everything else instead of reading, and then we'll get back into another book. So thanks, Uncle Al. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so let's start this one off. We're going to start off at the beginning of the chapter, and according to Selco, what are the most common hygiene-related problems that he saw in Bosnia? Page 271. What are the most common things he saw in Bosnia? So the most common things he saw were rashes, diarrhea, fungal problems, and lice. Now, we have a regulation in the feet fungus has got to be big, absolutely. And I would probably say trench foot too. But we had a regulation in the Army. You cannot share headgear. Because I guess there was an outbreak of lice at one time. And so, as a matter of fact, it is illegal to sell military headgear to anybody outside of the military. So quite often, you can get these hats and everything else that are military, but theoretically, it's against the law to sell those because there was an attempt, the law was written as an attempt to control head lice. So what causes the majority of the problems that we have in a post-SHTF environment? He said that there was a number one cause of all these things, and I put a video out on it a little while ago. Number one cause, he says, is bad water. So, when I talk about water, that's going to be our number one thing that we want to make sure we have clean. Hi, Auslander. Is it still raining down there in Australia? But anyhow, so, he said that most of the problems that they had were originated from either bad water or from sewage issues. And we'll get into those here a little bit later. So he said that there were several fecal-related illnesses. Let's talk about that here for a second. What were those, and what was his rule around those? So there's one that's not mentioned in the book, and it's called Cryptosporiosis. And we have MUDs, municipal utility districts, here in non-incorporated areas. And so our MUD both has, we get our water out of Brushy Creek, and then it's cleaned and sent to the houses. And then all of our sewage went down to a sewage collection point, and it had an electrical pump and pumped that up over a hill, and then it gravity fed into the city of Austin for them to do, the sewage treatment. So we had a contract with the city of Austin to do that. We had a storm, April of '97, I believe it was, and it hit the electrical pump for the sewage. So the sewage backed up in the collection point and got into our source of our drinking water, and that caused cryptosporiosis. And my daughter was the first confirmed case in our MUD. And what was really strange was the two characters who flew in from the CDC called us at 10 o'clock and asked us if they could come by the house and examine Allison, my daughter. And they looked just like Scully and Mulder. I tell you, it was crazy, but that's what they were. So some of the diseases that he talks about are diarrhea, dysentery, intestinal worms, and hepatitis, typhoid, and cholera. He gives a real good example of how fecal oral contact can be made, And so he's talking about a guy who goes outside and goes to the bathroom and then doesn't properly dispose of it. And a pig comes up, and pigs will eat anything. So the pig eats it, and it's walking in it. And then the pig goes over to an area where there's a kid, I believe. And so it steps on something, and the high peaceful monkey, and the kid does something and then touches its lip. And because it touched its lip with something that had come in contact with fecal matter, then the kid has typhoid. So, we have to be very, very cautious of how we handle all of our sanitation and hygiene, especially when we have an environment where there is no clean water and there is no sewage. So his number one rule of Hi Peaceful Monkey, his number one rule for personal hygiene is keep your hands clean. And he stressed it several times. To also make sure that you wear gloves, especially if you're going to be rummaging through stuff and you don't know what else has been there, whether their hands were clean or not. So whenever you're out, always wear gloves. If you're going to scavenge in a trash dump or anything like that, you have disposable gloves. So those latex, he says latex, and I'm going to say nitrile gloves. Have several hundred of those available to you as part of your kit. And that's going to be very problematic. He talks about small problems can become big problems on page 277. And I want to touch on that for just a second and give you a personal example that I had. He talks in there about a guy who has a cut, and the cut gets infected and he dies from the cut because he didn't clean it. He didn't use topical antibiotics and all that kinds of stuff. So I had an experience. We just bought a new house, the house where we had the mud issue. No, we moved there because of the mud issue. That's what it was. And it was a different mud. So we had moved in, and we were putting things up in the garage, and I scraped my leg against something. It was just a small puncture wound, and I wasn't that worried about it. I went to work, and I was teaching a class at Dell the next day, and so my leg started burning, and I bought a Coke and put the Coke against the wound. And I bought probably 4 or 5 cans of Coke just to keep it cold. And so after work, I called my wife and said, hey, I got to go to the doctor. And I went to the doctor and had the experience of my lifetime, the most painful injection I've ever had, called Rocephin. And it hurts so much that when they give it intramuscular IM, they mix it with lidocaine to try to deaden it as it goes in. It hurt so bad that I passed out, but they marked around the infection area. He said, come back tomorrow and we'll see where we are. I went back the next day. It was down. They gave me another shot of Rocephin, but I had to stay in bed for the weekend. But he said if that hadn't treated it, he would have had to have amputated my leg. So, making sure that regardless of how small the injury is, that you wash it with soap and water, that you put some sort of topical antibiotic on it, and make sure you watch it. And especially if you see any kind of festering or any kind of redness, any kind of heat, make sure that you're treating that. And so one of the ways you're going to want to do that is having plenty of antibiotics available to you. He talks, there's one section in there where he talks about a guy's wife. Hi, Susan. A guy's wife was in desperate need of antibiotics, and so he gave away all of his gold for one regimen of antibiotics for his wife. And he said it was very early on in the during the conflict, but at least the antibiotics, cured his wife, and he got to keep her. So that was a fantastic thing. But make sure you clean it. And I'm going to recommend. I've got 2 examples here. So I've got, this is what I get at the local grocery store, and this is what I get at Walmart. So this is what they look like. It's a sterile saline solution that is specifically for cleaning out a wound. So you don't want any of that stuff left in there. So you're going to use that, a little bit of soap, get it cleaned off, dry it off, and then put on some topical Neosporin or Polysporin or something like that, and try to keep that infection from growing. I think it's very, very important. So he also talks about 2 methods of bathing. What are his 2 methods of bathing? Absolutely, Uncle Al. Blood poisoning can be terrible. Oh, you're welcome, Prepping by Faith. Yeah, when I used to do my haul videos, almost every haul I had another can of wound wash, and then about every second or third one I'd have the sterile nasal uh, cleaning, spray it up your nose. But yeah, I think they're very, very critical. So he recommends two different kinds of bathing. One of them he calls the wet rag version, and so just having a cloth. Yep, that's absolutely it. The wet rag and bath, and so we, back in on the farm, we used to call it a sponge bath. But you're just taking water, dipping it out of a tray, and a little bit of soap, and you're wiping it down. Quite often, that's what we're going to do in the military. They have some military showers, but you only get to those probably once every 2 weeks. But the rest of the time, you're going to be wiping down. Baby wipes became the most loved thing in the military. I can honestly tell you that. Baby wipes are champs. Then the other one, of course, is a chemical bath, as Prepping by Faith talks about. Let me see, where was that? There she is. The chemical rag bath, where you're going to use something other than. So one of the things, this was given to me during one of my hospital stays, and it's a Castile soap towelette. So you open this up, and you've got a towelette that's probably 6 inches by 6 inches, and it's got soap on it, but you don't have to rinse it. So these are available. You can get 100 of these packets for around $6 or $7 on Amazon. But now you have to think about it. If you're going to rely on these, what you're doing is 100 per a box. That means you're going to have at least 3.5 boxes just for 1 year if you use one of these a day. So you can't count on this being your primary means of staying clean. Hi on the fence. Welcome. Okay, let me get back over here. That's where we were. So let me get to the new one. So what bathing supplies does he recommend you should stock? On page 277. Basically, the things we couldn't find at the beginning of 2020, right? So the number one love of the Army, baby wipes. Get plenty of those. These sterile soap towelettes are fantastic. Get plenty of those. Hand sanitizer. I've got a full shelf of nothing but hand sanitizer in our laundry room, and I've got a full shelf of soft soap, hand soap. Yeah, Tracy's absolutely correct. Baby wipes, alcohol pads, alcohol prep pads, absolutely. So all those are great things to have around in order to keep you clean. Then his next thing he started talking about was, how are you going to keep your clothes clean? And he recommends having dirty job clothes and clean job clothes, kind of like, I guess, office clothes and outdoor clothes. I don't know. But I would have to think about how to do that. Probably camis, or I don't know, blue jeans, something to go outside. But the problem is, a lot of times you're going to be inside and just automatically go outside. But anyhow, he talks about toilet paper and alternatives, and he gives a whole bunch of alternatives on page 281. Everything except the Sears catalog. Now, here's a secret I learned. 5 years ago, I was the HR director for the third largest homeless shelter in the U.S. and the largest here in Texas. And so the upstairs staff area where the executive suite was, we had our own bathroom, and the janitorial services crew would come in and change out the commercial toilet paper rolls every day just before close. And so when they did that, that would be ready for the next morning when everybody came in. So I got in the habit of, I asked the guy if he would bring me the rolls that weren't totally used up, that he removed from the bathroom when he put the new rolls on. So I want you, here is a normal roll of toilet paper, okay, that you're going to get this, that we get this at Sam's. So this is the Members Mark toilet paper. And I want you to compare that to a commercial half-used roll. Notice the size of this, which means you're basically getting twice as much toilet paper in the same amount of space that this is going to occupy on your shelf. So if you have a friend, or if you can in any way get a hold of the janitorial services warehouse, where you can go in and buy the janitorial service toilet paper that they use industrially, you're going to double the amount of toilet paper you have in your storage with the same amount of space. Oh, I don't even know what Soaport is. So that was brand new for me too. So I had never heard of it either. We'll get into that in just a second. That's a good point. Yes, absolutely, Rita. The no rinse body soap is fantastic, and I think you can get that in a spray can too. So yeah, medical supply. I think you can also get it through Amazon, to be honest with you. So let me see here. Where are we? We're going to go to keep your clothes clean. The next one. So who was it? That was Rita. Kind of read my mind and was talking about the that. Let me show you what I've got. So I didn't want to bring it out, but I've got this thing I got in Germany. It's basically a tub with a hand crank on it, and so you can crank it, and it's kind of like the centrifugal force of a spinner in a regular washing machine, so you can get rid of your water, get it rinsed off. And then, of course, I have a clothesline and clothespins. But I found on Amazon, this wash tub, okay? And but I should have sent it back. It arrived broken. But anyhow, I have this wash tub. And then, who was it? City Prepping recommended that you get naphtha soap, and that it holds good even up to high temperatures. So you're going to just kind of scrub it onto the scrubbing area where your clothes are. And he says, don't get a rock or a brush or anything else. And he recommended these Japanese scrub brushes to clean your clothes, because it's not going to tear up the fibers in your clothing quite as much. So I'll try to see if I can't find that video. It's probably about a year ago that he made that, and it was fantastic. And so I bought that and have it out in the garage with my spinner and my clothespins and my clothesline. Let me see what I got here. So Susan says, make your own soaps and body washes. Yes, you can. I have an issue, and so my issues don't necessarily relate to all you, but I'm allergic to formaldehyde, and I'm also allergic to formoterol byproducts. So if you take a look at almost everything, it's preserved with either formaldehyde or formoterol. So there's very few soaps, commercial soaps and things. For example, the only soap we can use for dishwashing, I'm sorry, for clothes washing, is Tide HE plus Downy, because that doesn't have any preservatives in it. And I can't wear anything leather. So if you look at my shoes, my shoes are cloth shoes, no leather anywhere on my body. My belt is a cloth belt. I don't have any leather, because leather is cured with formaldehyde, because that's my allergy. Just one of those things you have to kind of learn to live with. Okay, so Prepping by Faith agrees. She's got lots of that clean with her. Yes, I saw that, Tracy. There was a fantastic video somebody did that they took the 5-gallon bucket, cut a hole in the top on the gamma lid, and they put put the handle of the plunger up through the lid and then down, so that the plunger itself is down inside the bucket. And then you can use that as an agitator if you put soap and water inside that bucket to wash your clothes. And then do another one just like that to rinse your clothes. So great. Thank you, Tracy, for reminding us of that. All right. Thank you, Rita. Great idea. Really? I did not know that. Autocorrect. Who needs it, huh? It gets me in trouble a whole bunch of times. Let me see where we are here. Most common cause of sickness is, he says, and this is page 285. And he mentioned it right when we started the entire thing, the entire chapter, and it's bad water. So he said that most of the problems that he saw were caused by bad water. And if we take a look worldwide, that's going to be consistent. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, a lot of different problems. And part of the problem is you look at the water and you think it's clean, but you don't know what's happening 50 yards or 100 yards upstream from where you are. Remember, animals don't realize that they need to be 60 meters or 60 yards away from it in order for their stuff not to get into the water that they're drinking. So, that can be problematic is if you don't treat water that's coming directly out of the source. Yes, I agree with you. I think also the one, do you see it commercials where it has the squeeze, the squeeze top where you're going to squeeze the fibers of the mop? I think that would work well as well for squeezing soap or water out of clothing for a laundry purpose. I was looking at getting an old wringer off of that, and they have them that you can attach and then put a basin down below to catch the water. And those things are almost $200 nowadays if you want a hand wringer, like Grandma used to have. But yeah, those can get very, very expensive, but they're fantastic to have. Okay, so let me see my notes. So most common type for what is recommended for cleanliness in your home. I've got a little note there, and this is on page 288, and that was on, and a little note there says Korea. So why do you think I would put Korea there? Because there's something that I found out very common in Asia that we don't do and we should do. And so let's see who's picked up on that. Oh, wow. That's a good idea. Yep. Make it more water dynamic. But anyhow, amen. That's it. Did you notice when I said my shoes and I don't have them on because I'm at the back door and these are right next to the back door? We don't wear shoes in the house. So just think about it. All that yucky stuff that you're stepping on, people expectorating on the street, animals urinating, drugs, whatever, oil, gas, all that yucky stuff that your shoes are just grinding into the bottoms of your shoes. And then you come in and what do? You wear your shoes on your carpet and you get all that nice stuff embedded in your carpet. So in most Asian homes, you have a small entryway at the front and at the back, and they'll have a little bench where you can sit and change your shoes. There's one for shoes in the house and one and you got house shoes and they got your outdoor shoes. And that's something that we practice here at our house. Yep. Now he gets one in there that I disagree with, but I guess, maybe if we were in an SHTF situation, I might be a little bit more amenable to, but he says, don't allow your pets in the house because what they found out was as the conditions deteriorated, fleas were more common. And so when you allow your pets to come inside your house, you're bringing fleas in. I don't know if my girls would even allow a flea to get near them. But anyhow, he also says, don't let any animals come into your house. They're going to bring in diseases as well. That's true. That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. So Uncle Al says they do the same. Is that in Japan or your home here in the States, Uncle Al? Now, another thing he talks about, and I talked about the toilet paper. Oh, okay. I talked about the toilet paper, but he talks about alternative toilets. And so he goes through, there's about 4 pages where he gives diagrams of different toilets. 2 of them, I don't really see the difference between them, except the fact that one of them is buried and the other one isn't. And he recommends using it as compost. And I can agree with that. In Germany, that's how they treat their sewage. Their sewage goes into a composting area, and then they use that just before the first snowfall. They'll put all their sewage down. Then the snow covers it, and then it sits there and what's the proper word? Composts. There we go. It composts over the course of the winter. And then when spring comes and the snow melts, it carries it down inside the ground and improves the fertility of the ground. So, composting toilets are fantastic. I bought one off of Amazon, probably about, let me see, I was in the other house. So it has to be about 8 years ago. It's called the Luggable Loo, Luggable, Luggable Loo. And it's basically a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat, and it's got a lid. And it comes with several things inside of it. And it was pretty good. It was about, at that time, I think I paid $35 on Amazon. I think they're up to about 70 now. There's also another company, Rainy Day Foods, RAINY Day, DAY Foods, FOODS.com. And I bought 2 of their equivalents to the Luggable Loo. So we have 3. And the reason we have 3 is because I want to separate. One is going to be for urine only, and one's going to be for hard substances, fecal matter only. So we're going to try to separate those 2, because getting rid of urine is a lot easier to get rid of, dispose of, than fecal matter is. And but you can also get composting chemicals. He recommends that you get sawdust and a couple other things to put in there to contain the odor. There's a new thing out called potpourri, something like that. There's something out there where you can spray it in the toilet before you sit down, and it's supposed to contain all the odors. I don't know if that'll work in a emergency toilet, but you could try that. And there are chemicals. I've got some chemicals that you use for the composting toilets in RVs. So I went to an RV center and I bought a couple cases of the composting powder that causes everything to ferment and compost a lot faster. But you can also use cat litter. Cat litter is another good one. You can stir in there. That'll help you keep odor down. It'll help keep things coagulated and solid, so you can dispose of it a lot hardier. Now, just remember that if you use any chemicals in trying to decompose your fecal matter, then you cannot use that as a composting fertilizer for any foods you're going to use in the future, because it's going to, of course, contaminate it, and it's going to get into your food supply. Let me see where we are. Yes, yeah. And that's without any chemical help. So that's very true. And especially if you mix it into a composting pile. And so I have 2 composting piles in my yard, and that's absolutely true. LG has the Luggable Loo. Great product. Okay. Yes, and if you go to Rainy Day Foods, they have the red biohazard bags, and so they went on sale. I still own the store, so it had to be 3 or 4 years ago. They went on sale, and they were down to like 75 cents for 3 red biohazard bags. I ordered $50 worth, and so I have a whole case of those bio bags that are designed specifically for holding fecal matter. Yes. Yep. Now there's another thing. I did a video on my Luggable Loo and everything. Oh gosh, 6 months ago. And so what I do is I also have painters what do they call it? Drop cloth, painter's drop cloth, that plastic, thick plastic. And I put that down underneath the luggable root for the same reason you're putting in that second trash bag, is if there is any kind of a spillage, it's going to be contained on that painter's drop cloth and doesn't go out and get too much of the other area too messed up. Yes, Tracy, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. One for number one, one for number two. Great. Thank you. Good information to have. So everybody pay attention to that. Auslander says that if you use paper and then the fecal matter and you're using layering it with sawdust, leaves, cardboard, anything like that, then that's a great way to compost that. Yes, you can. Well, hello, Modern Refugee. Welcome. Good to see you. Hi, Tracy. Okay. Let me see where we are. Sterilization of instruments you're going to use for first aid. He comes up with a couple of solutions. And I'm going to change one of them. Fiberglass drip pan, absolutely great. Underneath your luggable or emergency toilet, let's put it that way. So for sterilizing instruments, he has two ways that he recommends, basically. I'm going to tell you one of them I don't like that he recommends, and I'm going to tell you why. Yes, so Prepping by Faith has the first one that he talks about, which is heating the instrument and getting it to a red hot metallic color, and that will sterilize it. And of course, you got to cool it down. And then alcohol is his second one. So he says either swish it around inside the alcohol or lay it in alcohol for 20 minutes. This is Lee, so please forgive me. This is just my thought process. I am not going to take a possibly dirty piece of medical equipment and put it into a clean bottle of alcohol and swish it around. What I most likely will do is pour some of that alcohol into some sort of a small tray. So those little plastic barf trays are fantastic, or the equipment tray, what do you want to call them? And then you can put your instrument down inside of that, just enough to where you're covering it with the alcohol, let it sit for 20 minutes. I prefer that. Then you're going to throw that alcohol away. It's not going to be used again. You've contaminated that alcohol. So, if you swish it around inside the bottle, you're in my opinion, just contaminating that bottle and you won't be able to use it anymore. So yes, Auslander, those are the two ways, either heat or some sort of alcohol content. So this is where the whiskey sometimes comes in handy, especially tequila. Tequila's got a very high alcohol content. I know he was assassinated, but expound on that there, Uncle Al. Okay, and then he went into the importance of having antibiotics. And that's where he gave the story of the guy who had a small cut on his finger and ended up dying from the infection from it. I don't know. That may be, Modern Refugee, that may be the same thing as an autoclave. I don't know. But I have heard the same thing. And so I bought a UV system because I was told that if I had a UV light, it would kill, the virus we had. And so that's what I would walk around my store with a UV system trying to sterilize everything. I've been told that. I don't know the efficacy of it, but that's what I have been told. Oh, okay. So he died a month after he was shot with blood poisoning. Teeth issues. My teeth issues end tomorrow. and it's costing me the price of a small house. But between my asthma medicine and military dentistry and being 70 years old almost, I'm having 17 teeth pulled tomorrow, and they're going to drill 8 holes into my jaw and put some posts in. And then tomorrow I'll come home with 2 brand new sets of implanted dentures. And but that's going to be quite expensive. And I'll tell you something nice while we're on the subject of medications. So I'll share that with you. Let me see. We're on here. Medications, right? Yeah, medications. The importance of having antibiotics. So what happened is, because I broke my hip and I have a brand new titanium hip, it's 8 weeks old. The hip doesn't get sealed into the bone tissue. They've got those mesh that has to take place in the 2 fuse, and it takes about 2 years. So until that happens, I have to stay under his care for any kind of traumatic surgery or anything else. So I had to have his permission to get the dental surgery done tomorrow. He says, come see me and I'll give you a prescription, because I want you on antibiotics for the week before or a day before and up to a week afterwards. I said, okay. So I went and saw him. He gave me, he told me he was going to call the prescription. So he called in a 1-day prescription of amoxicillin. And I called the nurse. I said, I thought he said he wanted me to have a week. So she talked to the doctor and said, oh, yeah, you're right. So he called in a prescription for 1 week of Bactrim. So I started that today. And then my oral surgeon also took care, and he gave me a full week's supply of twice a day amoxicillin. So I've got plenty of amoxicillin sitting around the house right now. So pretty happy about that. I lucked out with that. But let me see. Betadine solution. Well, yeah, Betadine can be used to cleanse things. They absolutely can. I think you can get Betadine solution liquid on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so besides that, consider getting this is available commercially. You can get the Jace medical system that has all of your major antibiotics, and it's available to you. And I know Apartment Prepper is a distributor with an affiliate, and I'm an affiliate. So either one of us can give you a $10 off code if you want to do it. Just let us know you want to do it, and we'll get you taken care of. But one of the things they were real nice about is in the medications. I told them that I have anaphylactic shock when I'm treated with azithromycin, so they put in a 4th type. The one that really impressed me, though, is this one right here, the ciprofloxacin. And the reason is because if you take a look at what it's used to treat all kinds of bioterror stuff. So in CERT, CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, we had to get certified for POD, and POD is point of delivery, so for medications, so that I have to be, tested and everything else, so I can issue ciprofloxacin in case of a bioterror thing. And they're going to set up a thing, and then how we put people through that process. So that's what the FEMA uses to treat most biological and chemical agents that are going to be used against us. So I was super impressed that I've got my own regimen here in this kit that they provided me with. So I was very happy to see that. And this is the Betadine solution they put them in after surgery. Yes. Well, and that's why I think, a word of caution. I think a lot of people kind of do things wrong. Remember, what we're talking about with first aid, what we're talking about with medication and everything else, is there is no medical professional immediately available. And so what I mean by that is, if I have this kit and I have an illness and there are no pharmacies, I'm going to go to a doctor and ask him which one I should take. Now, if there is no doctor available, then I'm going to check it out in this book. I'm going to check it out in the book that they provide in here, and then I'll take that recommendation. But under normal circumstances, do not self-treat. Go see a medical physician and get it taken care of professionally. Now, the other thing is, Dr. Alton, Dr. Bones did a video maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and so did another doctor, the one who recommended this first aid manual. Both of them did videos on, is it okay to buy veterinary medicine? And both of them came up with the conclusion that it's pretty much the same as the prescription medicine that you're going to get. Absolutely. I think, Susan, I think that's a key point that most people forget, and he talks about that as well, is, be as physically fit as you can, and take care of yourself. And we're going to get into another thing here he calls little problems become big things, I think, or have we already passed that? Let me see. No, we've already talked about it, but one of the things you don't understand is a simple thing like a sprain or a sprained ankle in an SHTF environment is going to cause you problems. You won't be able, if you're depending upon yourself to go down to the creek and pick up 2 5-gallon buckets of water, we're talking somewhere in the vicinity of 70 pounds you're going to be carrying back. And you can do that okay on 2 good feet. If you only have 1 good foot and the other one's got, you got a limp or a gimp or whatever, that's going to have major impact on how you do things. If you've got, dust in your eye and you're covering it and you're trying to treat it, your depth perception is gone. And so if there's an enemy out there that you need to take care of, you may not have the depth perception you take. So everything relies upon you being at your maximum. I did not want to do what I'm doing to my teeth tomorrow originally. But the way I look at it is, in my opinion, there probably won't be dental care available within a year from now. And so I might as well get something that I don't have to worry about rotting out and causing infection. And I'll pay for that now rather than having to worry about that again. So, the FEMA recommended drug, it is Cipro Flexacin. So I'll do it phonetically. Charlie India Papa, Romeo Oscar, Foxtrot Lima, Echo X-ray, Alpha Charlie India November. Ciprofloxacin. Let me put it here. That might be better for you. Sometimes it takes me a minute to determine the obvious. There you go. Well, that's not for decontamination. That's for treatment of some biological and specifically blood agents and some chemical agents. Okay, then on page 299, I'm sorry, on pages 301 through 303, he gives a list of what he recommends as must-have over-the-counter medications that you should have available to you in your home for treatment of most diseases. And so, how you can do that. Now, his wife, he and his wife put together another one right at the beginning, 2020. March, April of 2020. They put out another one, and it's called Infectious Diseases, and how to maintain a pandemic home where you have a treatment area and things you might want in addition to what you're going to have with your normal first aid and treatment room and everything like that. So they went into it. There's a third book, and it's Infectious Disease and Pandemics, I believe is the name of it. No, I did not know that. But thank you for sharing that. That's good information. The same thing with, I was unaware until recently, they have a version of over-the-counter not adrenaline. Golly, I open the refrigerator and take a look at it, and I'd be embarrassed. Insulin. There we go. Walmart has over-the-counter insulin available too, so you can get it and the needles if you need to. Okay, then on pages 307 to 309, let me see here. Did I miss this one? Oh, PPE talks about the PPE to have available to you. I think most of us are pretty aware of that. Make sure you have plenty of the gloves. Make sure you have plenty of masks. It's good to have eye protection. And he talks about having booties, in case anything gets on your foot, whether it be body fluids or blood or anything like that. And then I recommend you also have some sort of an apron or a smock or something like that you're going to wear that you can take off. In this case, that might even be decent to have either a raincoat or a poncho, so that stuff won't get on you. But that's just one of those things you might want to consider if you're treating people in your home and you have a medical facility set up inside your house after SHTF. Okay, so then he has a long list of recommended first aid supplies and medical supplies that he thinks we should all have in our homes. I will tell you, my experience is you can't have enough triangular bandages. You can't have enough dressings. So dressing is the gauze or the telfa that you're actually going to put on the wound to stop the bleeding or to protect it from infection. Then the bandage is what you're going to wrap it with. So you need plenty of bandages, you need plenty of dressings, you need plenty of triangular bandages, as many as you can get. I like this new Keflax. That's the stuff when you donate blood or when you give your blood for a blood test, they wrap it around with the cotton ball on your arm. It sticks to itself. I like that. That's really good. But I do have a slight allergic reaction to it every time they use it. Okay. He talks about, oh gosh, I need to catch up here. Look at all these comments. So that Uncle Al says no anti-radiation pills. Well, it's not anti-radiation. The one pill that they have, the IOSAT, which is potassium iodide, not iodine, and so it's KIO, is protecting the thyroid. That's all it protects is the thyroid. And the thyroid is the gland in the body that's most affected by radiation. But for being anti-radiation, anything, there is no such thing. It protects your thyroid. That's the limit of the potassium iodide, but that's the area that's most directly affected. So, if you want to get some, I have a bottle right over there that we keep here in the kitchen just in case. So it's readily available. Is this potassium iodide you're talking about, Modern Refugee? Oh, wow. Great idea. Thank you, Auslander. Yeah, and it kind of looks like those Civil War surgeons, too, with their hacksaws. Yeah, dressings, bandages, and triangular band. I carry, in my first aid kit, in my car, I have 6 triangular bandages. I think it's one of the most versatile things that you're going to have. In Boy Scouts, they taught us how you can do a splint for a sprained ankle. Just so much stuff. That's so great. Yeah, the sticky wrap is the Corflex I'm talking about. Or Corfex. I don't know. One of those complicated new English words. Here's something very interesting. I had ordered a new set of CPR valves. So that basically what you're doing is you're putting it over somebody's mouth, and then you don't have mouth-to-mouth contact for CPR. You're blowing into another tube, and then that tube is on the face mask. So it's kind of face mask to face mask type of a deal. And I'd ordered a brand new one, and I needed the infant size face mask. And so it arrived in we have a community mailbox. So the stupid post office barely gets it into my post office box for me to pick up my mail. And of course, it's got the opening, which is smaller than the back where they push things in. So I couldn't get it out. And as a result of not being able to get it out, where is it? Let me see if I still have it. I was on my way to Mass. And so I scraped my hand against the top of the mailbox. And I tore my hand up like you would not believe. And here I got this medic's first aid kit in the back of my car. I could not find a simple Band-Aid. I had all kinds of trauma stuff, but I did not have a simple Band-Aid. So yeah, great idea. Make sure you have a box of Band-Aids, at least a box of Band-Aids in the glove compartment of your car. If you read the fine print, you're not supposed to take the potassium iodide. Just a minute, let me go get it. And when you reach, older age, your eyes go as well. No artificial color, flavor, or sweetness, no preservatives, no sugars, no starch, no corn, no egg, no lactose, no, okay, that's all the stuff it doesn't have. Okay, so let's go over here. Caution, potassium iodide in the form contained in the product should only be taken as directed by a healthcare professional. Advise your healthcare practitioner if pregnant or nursing, taking medication, or if you have a medical usage for short-term use only. Discontinue use if you develop swollen salivary glands, upset stomach, or skin rash. Do not use if you have an iodine sensitivity, a thyroid condition, or if you are taking antihypertension or antithyroid medications. Suggested use as directed by a healthcare practitioner only in the event of nuclear exposure. So I don't see that. I read everything on the bottle. It doesn't say anything about, but so that's what I was reading. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, terrible. I didn't have any Band-Aids in my car. So this real nice lady in the car next to me looked at me, and I was bleeding, and she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "I need a Band-Aid." And she says, "Well, I have one." She got into her car, gave me a Band-Aid, and she was going to put it on me. I said, "No, I don't want you to do that. Let me put it on myself because I don't want you to come in anywhere close in contact to my blood." I have not heard that, but I guess that's covered in the caveat of consult your physician before taking. Yeah, I'll have to look it up somewhere else. It doesn't say anything about that on the bottle. So I'll have to I go online and look that up. But thank you for giving me something to investigate. Yes. Now here is something I want to caution everybody. There's this silly thing going around, and please don't do it because it's different types of cotton, and there is a falsehood out there that if you have a gunshot wound that you can plug it with a tampon. Please don't do that. You can pack a wound with the proper gauze, and so you have to use the sterile gauze, and that's going to be, you can use that to pack a wound, but don't use feminine hygiene products. Okay. Wow, thank you. Take care, Prepping by Faith. Always good to see you. Thank you, Uncle Al. Okay, let me see. We've only got a couple left. What do we have left? Primary assessment. So he's talking about doing the primary assessment, and he says Dr. ABC. So what does Dr. ABC stand for? So the first one is D, danger. Let me get to page 311. So, for example, if a person is lying on an electrical wire and you suspect that they have electrocution, pull them off the wire. So remove the danger before you do any kind of treatment whatsoever. And, same thing if it was a fire, get them out of the fire, whatever the case might be. The R is resuscitate. And so you want to always challenge them to see if they're awake or not and ask their permission to treat them if possible. And if they aren't coherent and can't give you permission, then it's okay to go ahead and do it. But you can't treat somebody who is coherent without their permission, even as a first responder. And then ABC, airway, I forget. For me, B was bleeding, control bleeding, and then C was control shock. But airway, breathing, which is mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and then C is, 311. He does it different than I do. I'm in the 320s. So I don't have my glasses on, so I'm trying to do this as best I can. Okay, circulation, breathing and then circulation. There we go. Then the recovery position. Now, when you're doing your assessment, one of the things I want that I was taught to do in CERT is make sure you have your blue gloves on, and then you can feel a person down very gently. And every time you feel just a little bit, pull your hands out, because that way, if there's any blood underneath, if let's say that you had a gunshot wound in the back and they're laying on their back, as you're moving your hands and checking, pull them out every once in a while, see if there's any blood. And that's going to tell you where there's a wound. And and it shows up real well in the blue gloves. If you use black gloves, the black nitros, it won't show up as easily. But that's why we stock all blue gloves. And then put them in the recovery position. So there's the steps there on page 316 on how to get them into the recovery position. Take care on the fence. Thank you for dropping by. No, we're looking for injuries. And then, okay, so there are 4 ways to control bleeding in order. What you want to do is first apply direct pressure to the wound, and then if that doesn't work, elevate. And then the third thing you want to do is go for a pressure point if you know them, and then the fourth one would be a tourniquet. So number 1, direct pressure, put it on there. And then number 2, elevate it. Number 3, pressure point. So the pressure point for here would be up in here. And then finally a tourniquet. Now, here's the thing that they taught us in CERT as caregivers in the case of a disaster. If you put a tourniquet on somebody, you have to stay with that person. And you cannot, and that means that let's say you're going onto a bus, okay, which is the example they gave us in class. You go onto the bus, you see the bus driver's there, and he's got an arterial wound and he's bleeding, and he's got this, and you got a tourniquet. So if you put a tourniquet on the bus driver right off the bat, you don't know what the condition is of those other 40 or 50 passengers on the bus. So by treating him, you may let 5 or 6 others that you could care for die who may have otherwise lived. So, first thing you want to do is do your assessment of everybody, prioritize, and anybody who obviously is going to be terminal, you don't want to waste any time on them. You got to take care of the people you can save. So that's kind of a big deal. Hello, Color Drop. Yes, absolutely. Do not use them. Do not use any tampons. That's not what they were made for. Yes, and you want to do it at probably 3 to 6 inches at least above the wound, and then you cannot remove it. So there was an adage out there for a while that said every so often you had to loosen it and allow blood flow to go, and then retighten it. We don't do that anymore. Once you put it on, it's there. The only person who can take it off is a medical professional. Yes, absolutely. Triage, it is tough. You have to go for the greater good. And sometimes for the greater good, you have to sacrifice one. And that is a very hard thing to do. Yes. Well, let me say it depends. You're going to check everything first. You're going to see, you're going to stabilize the neck because there's a possibility that it could be a broken neck, could be a broken back. So as you stabilize the neck, once you stabilize the neck, now you can do that, with a couple rolls of gauze and putting it around and stabilizing it and then putting some support around it. Take care, Uncle Al. But what you want to do is you want to stabilize the neck, then get them into that recovery position. Then once they're in the recovery position, then you can do the full check and see if it's just that one thing. Remember that anytime you find an entrance wound for a bullet, automatically look for an exit wound as well. The exit wound is, excuse me. The exit wound is going to be far greater than the entrance wound as far as size. Take care, Uncle Al. Okay, so in there, and then he talks about cleaning wounds and suturing. I will be honest with you. I don't believe in suturing in a post-SHTF environment. I prefer these things. These are steri strips, butterfly closures. And the reason is because everything I've done medically, when you're putting a suture or a staple in trying to close a wound, you're adding 2 more puncture wounds every time you close one area. And so to me, you're tripling the chances for infection. So I prefer not to do that. This doesn't add any wounds to the body. The other thing is most people don't understand the dynamics of wounds. And so the rule that's used by most physicians is the length of the wound has to exceed the depth before they suture it or staple it. So if it's really deep and just a little puncture wound, they aren't going to sew that shut. They're going to pack that. But if it's a long cut, long and not very deep, then that they will suture shut. So I mean, most people, we're going out and buying these suture kits and staple kits and everything else, and they don't understand the dynamics of wound closure and wound draining. And so I'm kind of not too pleased with all these people who want to do the suturing and the stapling and all that kinds of stuff. Disco Hook, how you doing? Yes, I have shaved. I've got 2 things. Number one, I wanted to make sure that if I have to put a mask on, an NBC mask, that I can get it sealed. And so I went back to my old Army ways and cut all this off so that I can get a seal. But the other one is I'm having a 6-hour oral surgery tomorrow. So I figured I'd be kind to the surgeon and make sure that he didn't have to go through all that hair. So. Yes. And so that's the other thing. You got to make sure that you have it totally cleaned. And that's why I say, get those sterile wound washes and flush the wound as well as you can. Because one little microscopic piece of infection in there, and you sew it up and seal it up, and it's going to cause all kinds of hellacious problems. Okay, and then the final one that I think we probably need to discuss is he talks about treating burns, and so he talks about all three, first, second, and third degree burns. Make sure you get plenty of this and have it available. I think that first aid wise, my opinion, because we see the vast number of injuries we see from camping trips are burn related. People starting fires, people adding wood to the fire, people pouring more starter onto the fire. They don't think it's burning, and it is, and then ignites. And so the number one injury from camping in the United States is burns. And so I think the same thing. If we have a post-SHTF environment and you can't cook on your stove anymore, people are going to start cooking outside. I think we're going to have the same thing. We're going to have an awful lot of burns. So please study up and be aware of what you can do to treat burns. And the last one we have here is we're going to finish the book next Thursday. And so we're going to finish up with chapter 6. And the title for chapter 6 is basically preparedness. So he's talking about all the things that he's going to recommend that you have: food, toiletries, and all that kinds of stuff, personal hygiene stuff. So it's basically his list of survival things that you need to have in order to survive some sort of a catastrophe, like probably the one that we have coming up. But along with that, what I'm proposing is the week after that, so not this next coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, we take a break. But what I would like to do is, I chose this book, okay, for you all to read, and I felt that was kind of autocratic. So what I would like to get is your input to me on, what book would you like to discuss next? And remember, this is the nonfiction, so we're using actual books that teach you things and not fiction. So if you would send me an email at that email address there, and let me know which book you'd like to recommend that we read for our next book club, I would greatly appreciate it. Anything else we need before we shut this down? Was this worth your time tonight? So let me ask that first. I learned a whole bunch of new stuff. Thank you for your fantastic comments. I really appreciate them. Tracy Auslander, Modern Refugee, you had some fantastic comments. Thank you so much. So I'll make sure I take some great notes when this comes out and gets published. So I will definitely try to. I'm going to be knocked out. Thank God. So I've already got the tramadol. He gave me the tramadol prescription today, so I can start taking that the minute I get home tomorrow. Thank you on the fence. Great. And thank you, LG. Appreciate you all. Okay, so don't forget, write down that email address, Cold War Prepper. It's also in all my videos. You can go down, it says, down at the very bottom, it says you can contact me. And it's also on my About Me. You can contact me at that email address. So if you would recommend the next book you'd all like to discuss, and we'll see what we can do. Tracy, that is some of the best news. The number one cause of death for women in the 19th century, well, 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, because they had long flowing loose dresses with aprons, and they had internal hearts that came out, and the coals would be brought out onto these rocks in front of the fireplace and for them to cook, and it would catch their clothing on fire. And that was the number one cause of death for 300 years. Women burning to death from cooking with loose-fitting clothing. Okay, so thank you all so much for showing up tonight. We'll see you next week. We'll finish this up, and hopefully we'll have a good recommended book for everybody to go out and get. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Togetherness is the key. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.